Hi students, today we are going to discuss on working with databases. So this is going to be my first slide which is about PHP and database. So here we are going to get insight on how we are going to connect your PHP and database. So the PHP which is going to act like an front end and your database server, the database server which is going to act like an back end for us. So the MySQL server is the one we are using as an example here as a database. Here the first point which is about PHP which supports both client side scripting and server side scripting. So normally PHP which is an server side language, scripting language, to create some web based applications we are using this PHP language. Here I have mentioned as PHP which is going to support both client side scripting and server side scripting. The reason for mentioning like this is here PHP which used to support HTML, and in HTML we could embed some JavaScript or other scripting languages. At the same time it used to support server side scripting also. That's why I have mentioned the PHP which supports both client side scripting and server side scripting. Next one, the PHP which supports lots of databases. The databases like MySQL, Ingres, PostgreSQL, Oracle, Sybase, and MS SQL Server. So it used to support some different databases. And then the question here is how we are going to connect PHP with databases. This is going to be the ultimate part of this particular session. So we are going to discuss about those things in the upcoming slides. And the next one which is about what is meant by database and what is meant by table and what is meant by records and what is meant by fields. So these are the questions, some of the questions that I'm posting to you people. So the answers are the database is nothing but the collection of one or more tables. We used to call it as an database. And then the answer for table is the collection of one or more records. We used to call it as a table. And then what is meant by record? So each and every rows present in a table we used to call it as an records. And field names, so in a table normally we used to have title for each and every column, so that particular title we used to call it as a field name. And then the next question is how we are going to access the data. So in PHP we have some various inbuilt functions. So using those inbuilt functions we used to call it as in PHP database inbuilt functions. So using those inbuilt functions, we are going to access the data. So here we have PHP on one end, and then MySQL server, database server on the other end. Using PHP inbuilt function, we are going to connect the PHP with MySQL database server, and then we are trying to access the data from MySQL server to the PHP. So using some PHP code, we are going to develop some front end screen, and then in this front end screen we are going to create some web pages. In those web pages we are trying to access some reports. So using some buttons we are trying to access some reports, reports in the sense database reports. So how we are going to access, so soon after clicking some filling up some fields and clicking on some buttons, it used to fetch some records from the MySQL database server to your PHP web page. So how this used to happen, so all these things will be discussed here. Next one which is about MySQL server, simply I have given it as an SQL which stands for structured query language. So structured query language, which means we are going to create a database in forms of a proper tabled structure. So that's why we are calling it as an structured querying, in the sense to access those data whatever that present in the table. We need to ask some questions to the MySQL server, and then it used to post some answers to you. So that's why we used to call it as an structured query language. So we have some syntaxes for mentioning the queries. So we have to follow those syntaxes as the rules. Even though syntaxes, we could call it as a structure for accessing the data from the tables. So that's why we used to call it as a structured query language. So this particular SQL statements are common for any databases that you're going to use. You may use Oracle, or you may use MS SQL Server, or you may use MySQL Server or PostgreSQL. So whatever may be the database server that you're going to use, in all those database servers, we are going to use the similar set of SQL statements. And then here I have some questions like, what is query? The query is nothing but it is like a question that you're going to ask to the database server. So you have some set of statements, those set of statements which consist of some questions, so that will be posted to the database server, and then database server it used to accept those queries, and then it used to give some answers. So that's about query. Query is nothing but a questions that we're going to ask to database servers. And then select statements is nothing but you may select a database, or you may select a table. So for that we are going to use some statements using the keyword select. So that's about select statement. And then you have some various inbuilt MySQL query functions. Using those inbuilt MySQL query functions, we are going to connect your PHP with MySQL database servers, or whatever the interaction that you have to perform between this PHP and MySQL server. We used to use this MySQL query functions. And then along with this queries, we used to use some various classes like var class, order by class. And then along with your var class, we used to use these not in and in and. So these are some various operators that we used to use along with your var class. Whereas order by class is to order the statements whatever that we have, or to order the data present in a table by selecting a particular field. We used to use this order by class. And then you have some various other statements like update statement or delete statement. Update statement is to update a record in a particular table. So already you have some data, and suppose you have to make some changes over that particular data. So for that you have to use update query. And then delete a statement is about for deleting a single row, to delete an entire table, to delete a particular column in your table. We used to use this delete statement. So next one, which is about SQL server. So how we are going to open the SQL server, and what are the various commands that we are going to work over there, and how it is going to work. So these are the things that we have. So first we are going to open the MySQL server using console. And then suppose if you know the username and password, you could enter the username and password, and then you can get into that particular database server. Suppose if you don't know the username or password, so you have to use the root as an option, so which is going to be in default one. So whenever that you're going to use this root as an option, you don't need to mention any username or password. And then after opening that particular console, or after opening the command prompt of MySQL server, you could use these statements like select a version or date it used to post. So what is the version that we have, and what is the current date that it's running. So those things will be displayed. And then you have some various statements like show databases, create databases, use databases, and show tables. Show databases in the sense, so whatever the databases that we have created so far, all those databases will get listed whenever that we are going to use this show databases option. And next one, which is about create databases. Suppose if you want to create some new database, so you could use this create database as an option. And then use databases in the sense, it's going to list out some a number of databases. Among those databases you're going to use a particular database. So for that you have to use this particular statement as use database name. So we could select a particular database, and then we could work on that particular database. And then show tables. So we have some a number of databases, we are going to choose a particular databases. And in that particular database, so what is the table that we have, what are the list of tables that we have. To list out all the tables in a database, we used to use the statement show tables option. And the next thing which is about accessing databases. So as already discussed, we have some various inbuilt MySQL functions. Using those inbuilt MySQL functions, we used to make the PHP to interact with MySQL database server, and we used to fetch some information from MySQL database server to your PHP web page. And then the next thing which is about MySQL underscore connect, which is an inbuilt function which is used to connect your PHP with MySQL database server. So using this option only, first we make the connection, and next one is about MySQL underscore select underscore DB. So using this inbuilt function, we are going to choose, first we are making a connection, and then we are going to choose a particular database from that particular connection. And after choosing the database, we have to execute some query to make that particular database, make use of that particular database. So for that we are going to use mysql underscore query, which is going to be an inbuilt function. So whatever the query that you have to execute, so those queries will get executed using this particular function, mysql underscore query. And then the next one which is about creating table. So we have create table name. Using that particular statement, we would be able to create table. Then which is about describe table. So what are the various elements that we have in that particular table, and to list out those attributes and properties, we used to use describe table name. So using this statement, we could list out some various properties and then attributes and then various field names present in that particular table. And display table, so we have created some table, and then we have inserted some various elements into the table, or inserted some various rows into that particular table. To list out all those rows present in a table, we could use this as an option, display table as an option. Next one which is about mysql fetch array, which is an inbuilt function. So for example, you have some a number of rows in a table. To select some appropriate rows, to select some appropriate columns, and to get some all those rows from the table and to display it in your web page, we could use this msql underscore fetch underscore array. For example, each and every row which is being indexed with array, for example array of 0 which consists of the first row, and array of 1 which consists of the second row. Similarly, you will have some array of n rows. To fetch all those rows from the database server and to print it on your web page, we could use this function mysql underscore fetch underscore array as an option. And then the last thing, which is about mysql underscore close, which is a function which is for closing the connection. So for getting connect with your database server, we used to use mysql underscore connect, and after performing all those database connectivity and accessing tables and performing some updation in those tables, to the final we have to close the connection. So for that we have to use mysql underscore close as a function. So with this, I am ending up this session. uh, if you have any doubts, you could post those queries to my mail id, and then I will answer to those queries. So thank you for listening. Thank you, students. Thank you.